Welcome to America. It's a beacon of liberty, the democracy of democracies for over 200 years. It's every American's pride. The Lincoln Memorial is a celebration of this heritage. People who come to see it are always moved, just as I am today. Every 4 years, a gigantic democratic machine is put back in motion in each one of the 50 American states. May 2016, the electoral campaign is at its peak as we're visiting this university in Arkansas, in the south of the United States.
I am so excited to be here at UAPB.
Hillary is fighting for her candidacy.
I think we need to raise the federal minimum wage because
This former First Lady is traveling across the country to become the new nominee of the Democrat Party.
Thank you, Arkansas. Let's go work together. Let's win on Tuesday. Thank you all so much.
A brief stop for Hillary Clinton, who poses for a few pictures before returning to her job at the White House. I chose to hang around in Arkansas for a bit. I wanted to meet other candidates who were getting somewhat less coverage. In the state capital of Little Rock, another woman has come to pander to voters in much more serious atmosphere. Her name's Courtney Goodson. She's also campaigning. Today, she's paying a visit to this reception hosted by the Democratic Party Black Caucus.
Do you know Senator Walton?
Hi, Judge. How are you? Bill Walker. It's a pleasure meeting you. I don't care what they say about you. I'm voting for you.
But Courtney Goodson isn't a politician. She's a judge in the highest court of the state, Arkansas Supreme Court. In this state, the state's citizens vote to elect their judges. In 2016, she's a candidate for Chief Justice of the Arkansas Supreme Court. We finally get a chance to introduce ourselves while she has a moment to herself.
Mrs. Goodson?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Sylvain Pac. I'm a journalist from France, from Paris.
Oh,
far away. I'm traveling through the US to do a...
We took a minute of her campaigning time to ask her a few questions.
Why is it important for you to come here?
Because I serve these people. I serve these people and I need to understand their stories, know their values, be in touch with them in a very real way. And this gives me an opportunity to do that.
Justice to the people, a beautiful idea that can be very attractive to some voters.
Think of it. Do you like the idea of electing your own judge?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that I should have a say in who is elected and who is not. So I think it's important for the people to have a voice in that.
But at the next table, another guest has mixed feelings on the principle of electing your judges.
The position of a judge should be impartial, and it's very difficult to be impartial if you are campaigning for votes. They should not be elected. It's a job. It's not a political position.
In the United States, some judges are appointed, like in Washington's Supreme Court. But other states have different rules. 39 out of 50 American states have judiciary elections. The idea was born in the 19th century, so judges wouldn't be influenced by political power. Campaign financing is costly, and without any public funding, candidates need the financial backing of the private sector, to a point where some are accused of being corrupt.
Sir, do you regret what you did? Do you regret taking the money?
The motto is carved in stone in front of every tribunal. The impartial administration of justice is the foundation of liberty. This promise has been abused by private interests, who have no remorse using bad publicity to discredit judges.
Supreme Court Justice Robin Hudson took the side of the convicted molesters. Justice Robin Hudson, not tough, on child molesters, not fair to victims.
Some judges, under electoral pressure, have even been more inclined to pronounce the death sentence, to the attorney's despair.
So at the end of the day, we can say that judicial elections kill.
Judicial elections absolutely kill.
For a month, I traveled in the United States to understand how the noble idea of justice for the people and by the people had definitely been twisted. There are no elections without a proper campaign. In the more rural regions of the country, candidates to local judiciary positions make do with their own means. Like here in South Arkansas. In the polling station's vicinity, no effort is spared to publicize the candidacies to the voter.
Are you Jack Barker?
I am.
Oh, you are Jack Barker?
That's
You're
right.
the candidate himself?
Right.
Holding the sign?
Holding the sign. I'm from El Dorado. I've lived here all my life, 60 years.
Yeah?
Yep.
We are...
This lawyer is campaigning for the district judge's position, Arkansas's lowest jurisdiction, that mostly deals with misdemeanor offenses and small civil cases. Right across, Lee Walton, his opponent, has designated one of his supporters to hold his post.
He is honest, and he's a good family man. He's very well educated.
Who are you?
I'm his mother.
Okay. Oh, you're his first supporter then.
For these local judges, the total cost of an electoral campaign doesn't add up to more than a few $1,000s. Most of the time, family and friends are their main financial contributors. But the higher you climb up the judiciary hierarchy, the more costly the campaign becomes, sometimes reaching several $1,000s. So is the case for candidates to the Supreme State Court of Arkansas, the highest jurisdiction of the state. This year, 2 seats will be renewed for which 4 candidates will be campaigning. Their challenge is to become well-known public figures for the 3 million people who live in Arkansas. This may take several thousands of flyers, like the ones for Courtney Goodson, the judge I met in Little Rock. And hundreds of lawn signs for your supporters to proudly plant in their front gardens. But the most expensive of all will be the TV advertising.
For $19.99. Supreme Court Justice Courtney Goodson.
Hold it.
This is Courtney Goodson's campaign ad to promote her candidacy as Supreme Court Justice of Arkansas. She's married to an attorney and presents herself as the candidate of the average citizen.
I've never been the favorite of the establishment crowd. I don't take my marching orders from them. I work for you. I believe the Supreme Court should be a place where the people are in charge.
Courtney Goodson for Supreme Court.
Growing up
Her opponent is the establishment's favorite candidate, Dan Kemp, a North Arkansas judge.
I'm Judge Dan Kemp, and I've been a judge for over 35 years.
To distance himself from Goodson, he's prompt to show off his religious beliefs.
Integrity and experience. Every morning before I walk into court, I pray that I'll be fair and impartial and uphold the Constitution. And that's what I'll do as Chief Justice.
Dan Kemp's campaign will cost nearly $400,000. But how is a modest magistrate supposed to collect this kind of money? In reality, he can count on the support of Arkansas's largest fortunes. This is the annual Rogers Chamber of Commerce banquet in North Arkansas, 3 days away from Election Day. This gathering of businessmen is crucial to a candidate's strategy. Among the guests of honor, here is Dan Kemp, our campaigning judge.
So, how are you doing?
Well, good.
So, why is it important for you to be here tonight?
Oh, it's a Chamber of Commerce banquet, and should be 900 to 1,000 people. So we get to see a lot of people, and you want to see as many people as possible to get your name out for the election, which is next Tuesday.
Okay, so you're going to try to convince these people to vote for you?
All right, ask them for your vote, right.
Every vote counts in an election, even Miss Rodeo 2016's.
How are you? I'm Kelsey.
Kelsey,
Very nice to meet you.
Where are you from?
I'm from Pea Ridge.
Oh, Pea Ridge, okay.
Today, however, Judge Kemp has come to offer his candidacy to businessmen like this moving company business owner.
Sir, hello. So you had a chance to talk with him?
Yes, yeah.
You might vote for him?
I may vote for him, yeah.
Do you think that he has the support of the business community here in Arkansas, Judge Kemp?
I've heard very good things about him.
Sorry?
Yeah. I've heard very good things about him.
Oh, yeah?
In conversations with others and such, so it was very nice to have met him. So.
Okay. Yeah. Like what kind of good things could you hear? What would it be?
Outstanding, honest, fair. Yeah. So, you know, some of the qualities that are important to me is what.
Judge Kemp seems to be popular among businessmen. A lot of them actually finance his campaign, just like the shareholders of one of this banquet's biggest sponsors, Walmart, the global leader in retail distribution. Its home office is in Arkansas. These shareholders are part of one of the wealthiest American families, the Waltons. Several members of the family are personally supporting the judge's campaign, financially. These contributions are recorded in Dan Kemp's Treasury's mandatory monthly financial reports, each donating up to Arkansas's legal limit of $2,700 each. The Waltons have contributed over $13,000 to Dan Kemp's campaign. This candidate's popularity among businessmen is now a fact. Among his campaign contributors, we find the state's biggest business owners, like the Stevens and the Arvis Banks, Dillard's department stores, or the health insurance company Blue Cross Blue Shield. If these benefactors were to be tried in their state, they could well be facing the decision of Supreme Court Justice Kemp, if his candidacy were successful.
Some of these big businessmen give you money, and maybe you will judge them someday. How do you deal with that? Do you keep, how do you remain independent?
Sometimes, if it's large enough money, you have to recuse or step down from deciding the case. Now, in Arkansas, judges do not know where the funds come from, so we don't know where those funds come from, where the campaign funds come from.
Oh, you don't know who gives you money?
No, we don't.
Oh, right, okay.
We don't. So.
But you could if you wanted.
Well, we could if we wanted, but we're not supposed to. We've got canons of conduct, judicial conduct, which prevents us from finding out who gives money to our campaign.
Is Judge Kemp really oblivious to the financing of his own campaign, despite the fact all the data is publicly accessible on the internet?
Good luck for the race.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Hopefully see you Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night.
Okay.
Have a good night, madam.
In any case, contributors have bet on the right horse. On election day, he won the vote against his rival, Courtney Goodson.
Hey, first, I just want to praise God for sustaining Susan and me through this race.
Amen.
Publicly, on election night, he doesn't even thank his campaign contributors. But isn't he liable to have more lenient verdicts towards his supporters? That's the whole question. The same issue has been raised with another Arkansas judge, Mike Maggio. In the Little Rock Tribunal, I will try and interview him despite his reluctance to speak to journalists. That's him, picking up speed. Mike Maggio has a hearing today. This is his home. He's been a judge in this state for almost 15 years. Today, the roles are reversed. He is accused of corruption for the benefit of one of his contributors. His career is over. Two women in particular wish he were put in jail. We're meeting in this small restaurant in the Arkansas countryside.
Oldest daughter's going.
Rosie and Rhonda want to speak about their mum, Martha Bull.
and that is my mother. She's a very hard-working woman.
The whole affair started because of her. She died in 2008 due to medical negligence. Martha Bull was placed in this nursing home to rest after having had heart surgery. One night, she started suffering excruciating abdominal pain. A doctor asked for her to be sent to the ER, but personnel didn't follow his recommendation. She died in the morning after being left agonizing all night.
Those mistakes shouldn't happen. You know, if you have a doctor's order, you should follow them.
The home belongs to a wealthy businessman, Michael Morton. He owns 30 such establishments in all Arkansas. The daughters of the victim sued for criminal negligence. A 12-person jury of peers under Judge Maggio adjudicated the case in 2013. Unanimously, the 12 jurors decide the nursing home should be sentenced to pay $5.2 million of punitive damages to the family. But Michael Morton, owner of the home, appeals the verdict to Judge Maggio. He asked the amount chosen by the jury for the damages to be reduced. However surprising this may be, this kind of action is legal in the United States. The trouble is the re-election campaign of Judge Maggio for his judge seat is on its way at the same time. He receives several $1,000s in campaign donations from Michael Morton. That's when the miracle happens. Judge Maggio decides to sort out his generous benefactor's troubles and reduce the amount of the punitive damages to a fifth of the sum initially chosen by the jury. He explained his decision, declaring he found the initial amount shocking to the court's conscience, meaning his own. Eight months later, the truth is finally revealed, thanks to the Blue Hog. That's Matt Campbell's blog's name. He is a militant attorney. A few months after the Judge Maggio's campaign began, the lawyer was tipped off.
Somebody said he got some money from some political action committees that looks a little suspicious.
He then takes a closer look at Judge Maggio's campaign financial report and finds out that Michael Morton, the owner of the nursing homes, is a big contributor.
The contribution was from the Sherwood Nursing and Rehabilitation, which is one of Michael Morton's nursing homes.
For how much?
For $3,000.
The Arkansas nursing home magnate has made out several checks to the judge's campaign for a total amount of $21,000. What's even more troubling is the date these checks were made, on the 8th of July 2013, just 2 days before the judge decided to divide the damages by a factor of 5. When his investigation was over, Matt Campbell released a piece with an ironic title, accusing the judge of being corrupt.
Mike Maggio's conscience offers great return on investment. In his order, he went on and on about how the amount of the award shocked his conscience. And I figured, you know, he's basically, at this point, sort of implying that his conscience is for sale.
Is Michael Morton really guilty of corrupting a judge to reduce his sentence? I was able to get him on the phone and get his side of the story.
I did give money to his campaign for appeals court.
Did you expect him to make this decision in exchange?
No, I never, ever discussed a jury verdict reduced to anybody. I bribed nobody.
But why did you give him the money just before he decided to reduce the verdict?
I have no idea about the day. I don't know everybody's schedule or anything else. When I do things, it's just another day to me. All that, to me, was coincidental, and I had nothing to do with it.
Is this pure coincidence? This is not what Judge Maggio seems to think.
Mike Maggio stood before one of his former colleagues, in this case a federal judge, and admitted that, in fact, he accepted a bribe for a case going on in his court.
Questioned by his peers, he finally admits to reducing Michael Morton's sentence in order to receive this large campaign contribution. He pleads guilty of corruption. In March 2016, at his arraignment hearing, we tried to ask him a few questions.
Sir, do you regret what you did? Do you regret taking the money? Sir, do you have something to say to the family, to the victims? Sir?
In the end, Judge Maggio received the maximum sentence of 10 years in prison.
Are you sorry? How do you feel about the fact that you...
To this day, Michael Walton, the resting home's owner, has not been charged with anything. In the last 15 years, over $300 million have been spent on judiciary elections in the United States. Sometimes companies chose to support indulgent candidates to help their businesses. This is what a big insurance company in Chicago is being accused of. The story begins in the early 2000s when 4,000 drivers decide to sue their insurer, State Farm, one of the biggest in the country. The dispute has to do with the quality of the spare parts used to repair the cars. Bob Clifford, one of the lawyers at the class action, explains the case.
They allegedly cheated the policyholders out of the quality that they deserved under and paid for under their premiums and under the policies, and a jury in southern Illinois determined that that was correct, that the plaintiffs were correct, and awarded over $1 billion in damages.
At the appellate court in 2001, justice confirms State Farm is to pay $1 billion in damages for the drivers, a colossal amount. But the insurer is not about to throw in the towel. In 2003, he asked the Supreme Court of Illinois to review the verdict and to get an annulment. During the proceedings, one of the 7 judges of the Supreme Court decides to retire. An election has to be organized in order to replace him. According to the victim's lawyer, the insurance took this opportunity to get a favorable judge elected, Lord Carmire.
We accuse and allege that State Farm either directly or indirectly participated in helping elect him.
According to him, State Farm was involved in recruiting its own candidate for the job. To do so, the company used the services of the Illinois Civil Justice League, ICJL, an advocacy group representing the interest of Illinois businesses and of which State Farm is a prominent member. Ed Murnane is the president of the ICJL. He was commissioned to get Judge Carmire elected Supreme Court Justice because of his reputation of being favorable to companies in his verdicts.
Mr. Murnane, we believe the evidence shows, and we have alleged, that he was the chief architect of the Carmire election, that he is the one who designed the campaign strategy. He is the one who selected and identified then Judge Carmire as a potential candidate for the office, that he persuaded Judge Carmire and his wife to have and allow the judge to participate.
To put it briefly, Illinois' companies managed to get the people and the consumers to vote for a judge who favors businesses. Is the suspected puppet master of this incredible maneuver, Ed Murnane, going to confirm? He's no longer the president of the ICJL. He is retired to the suburbs of Chicago.
Mr. Murnane?
That's where we found him.
Excuse me, sir.
He doesn't know the camera's rolling.
Hello. Are you Mr. Murnane? Oh, nice to meet you. We're lucky. I'm Sylvain Pack. I'm a journalist from France. But they say that you recruited Carmire, you vetted Carmire. You said, okay, let's find a judge for State Farm and for the business community that will be a good judge for us and will side with us.
Said, let's find a judge, let's find a candidate to run for this vacancy, this judicial vacancy. Justice Carmire had a 40-year record as a judge a very good record.
How do you deny this?
To my surprise, the ex-president of the lobby admits his role in recruiting Judge Carmire.
Did I support Justice Carmire? Yes, I did. Did I help recruit him? Yes, we were looking for a candidate to run. I told the judge that, and I told the in my deposition, I'm not denying any of that.
We're not working on behalf of State Farm.
No.
You are working on behalf of the general business community?
I'm working on behalf of the supporters of the Illinois Civil Justice League, which was the organization that I was president of. State Farm happened to be one of them. Okay, you too.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
The pill may be hard to swallow, but Illinois' lobby did recruit and finance its very own candidate, and State Farm has been one of the first ones to benefit from this new election. The insurer even financed the judge's campaign through its own employees for a total amount of $350,000. In 2004, the ICJL is victorious. Its candidate, Judge Carmire, is elected Supreme Court Justice in Illinois. A few months later, he takes part in the deliberation regarding State Farm's condemnation.
And what happened then?
It overturned the verdict.
So what was that meant that State Farm had nothing to pay?
They had nothing to pay. They threw the case out in its entirety.
So the $1 billion...
Gone, like it never happened.
The billion is gone. State Farm has nothing left to pay. And this is largely due to Judge Carmire's vote. Without his vote, the Supreme Court would have still reduced the damages to $456 million. But Judge Carmire's vote managed to reverse the verdict entirely. He saved State Farm almost $500 million. Maybe Judge Carmire's conscience dictated his vote and not State Farm's money. But the suspicion is real. In March 2016, in a federal court, he was asked to testify about the way his campaign was held. In the course of my investigation, he refused an interview. So did State Farm, who's always denied any implication in his campaign. For those who oppose judiciary elections, this affair is yet another example of how urgently the system needs reform.
There are many people who have said that the way that campaign finance system has developed in this country, particularly in the past couple decades, is basically a form of legalized bribery. When someone gives a substantial amount of money to someone, that person is going to feel that they owe that donor something. And that is inherently buying influence, legalized bribery.
After the reversal of the verdict, the insured drivers who sued lost a lot of money, and so did their lawyers, a huge amount of money.
Generally, attorneys take something like 1/3 as a rough rule of thumb of a judgment. So it could be costing those plaintiffs' firms $330 million to have that judgment overturned. Now, in larger cases like that, there can be restrictions put on that may lower the amount of fees somewhat, but as a general rule of thumb, that's a good way to think of it.
Bob Clifford did not wish to reveal the amount the case cost the lawyers involved. But in 2014, he finally gets his revenge. He spent $250,000 in an aggressive ad campaign against Judge Carmire's re-election.
Big corporations have polluted our justice. How? Their allies funneled millions of dollars into Judge Carmire's campaign and paid for Carmire's luxury junkets designed to influence his actions. Vote no on Judge Carmire. We can't afford Carmire's polluted justice.
To try and counter the devastating effects of this campaign, Carmire appeared in a beautiful campaign ad praising his integrity.
Judge Carmire, the highest ethical standards, a man of immense integrity. Carmire for judge, serving Illinois with integrity.
He was re-elected in 2014. For judges, the perpetual temptation to satisfy potential benefactors is often doubled by their duty to answer voters' expectations, just like political figures. We're far from any kind of serene exercise of justice. In this law university, we met an ex-judge whose career was demolished in 2010 by a series of attack ads.
Iowa Constitution.
She's a guest at this conference.
The right to same-sex marriage. Chief Justice Marsha Ternis of the Supreme Court.
Marsha Ternis has been an Iowa Supreme Court justice for 17 years.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Honorable Supreme Court of the state of Iowa is now in session.
In 2009, the Iowa Supreme Court must rule on the constitutionality of a law forbidding gay marriage in the state. After the deliberation, all 7 judges think the law would discriminate against homosexuals. It is ruled unconstitutional. As a direct result, gays can now legally be married in Iowa.
Did you expect the backlash that happened? And it was in the back of our minds, but I didn't really think about it because it wasn't relevant to the decision-making process. Now, once the decision was released, had been made and published, it was pretty clear that there would be opposition to our retention.
A few months later, 3 judges' seats, including Marsha Ternis, are up for re-election.
Activist judges
They will be put through a brutal attack ad campaign financed by anti-gay marriage lobbyists.
Same-sex marriage on Iowa. Liberal, out-of-control judges ignoring our traditional values and legislating from the bench, imposing their own values on Iowa. If they can usurp the will of voters and redefine marriage, what will they do to other long-established Iowa traditions and rights? 3 of these judges are now on the November ballot. Send them a message. Vote no on retention of Supreme Court justices.
The attack is successful. In 2010, all 3 judges lose their seats. For Marsha Ternis, however, she simply enforced the Iowa Constitution. She thinks that unlike politicians, and despite the fact they're being elected, judges should disregard public opinion when it comes to the law.
Politician is voting in a representative capacity, and they're expected to reflect the views of their constituents. A judge is exactly the opposite. A judge is required to make his or her decision based on the rule of law. If judges made decisions based on will of the majority, then minorities would not have the benefit of the equal protection of the laws. It would be majoritarian rule.
So who wanted the heads of the Iowa Supreme Court judges? What were their motives? I went down to the conservative south of the United States to locate one of the groups who financed the attack campaign against the judges. This is where the American Family Association, the AFA, is based. Even before getting into the building, you get a taste of what to expect inside. The 10 Commandments are exposed on the front lawn. And Patrick Vaughan, the General Counsel of the AFA, is here to defend them.
This map here shows you where our radio stations are.
So each dot is a radio station from your organization, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The AFA is a powerful organization that has some 200 radios in the whole country at its disposal.
This is evangelical Christian radio attempting to build up, strengthen the institution of the family.
To build up the institution of the family, they also have a magazine which they boast has over 180,000 subscribers. Its 140 employees have one idea in mind.
What's the history of gay marriage in France?
He's here talking about Judicial.
Yeah, I want to know about his home country.
Well, it's legal now for about 1 or 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
Members of the AFA are self-proclaimed Christian fundamentalists. A different spokesperson is joining in for my interview about their attack campaign against Iowa judges, for which they admit spending $400,000.
When you decided this campaign, they had already voted for same-sex marriage in Iowa, so it was legal. So
correct.
You couldn't turn it back. So what did you expect to achieve with that?
Right before we got involved, you had Prop 8 overturned in California, like a week before we got involved in it. There was kind of like a tidal wave of judicial activism imposing a constitutional standard and a legal standard on the country that was not what the people would have ever chosen.
Were you trying to send a message to other states, other Supreme Court justices? So
to slow down this tidal wave that seemed to be sweeping across the nation.
Okay.
This campaign, led by evangelists, has only one goal: intimidate judges in other states who might have to rule on gay marriage. Rather ironically, since the attack campaign, the United States Supreme Court has ruled once and for all that any type of discrimination against gays and any law forbidding gay marriage would be unconstitutional, according to the Constitution of the United States. The United States Supreme Court thereby validated the Iowa judge's ruling. Nevertheless, the Christian fundamentalists' attack ads were successful in discrediting the judges and making them lose their seats.
Opposing same-sex marriage on Iowa. Liberal, out-of-control judges ignoring our traditional values and legislating from the bench. Vote no on retention of Supreme Court justices.
I think that what they did was destructive. What they primarily accomplished was adding to the politicization and manipulation of the judicial branch.
In her misfortune, Judge Ternis at least knows who paid to destroy her career. This is not always the case. As crazy as it may seem, in the United States, some candidates to judiciary elections don't even know who is attacking them. This is what happened to Tim Cullen. In 2014, he decides to be a candidate for the Arkansas Supreme Court judge seat.
This is, sure, that's my campaign photo, and that was our logo and bumper sticker, and that was just a poster that we did for the election.
In the end, how did that go for you?
It was close, but I lost. It was 52 to 48 percentage-wise. Viewed both of the ads.
During his election campaign, he puts the TV on to discover an attack ad against his candidacy. The ad is using his past as a defense attorney against him.
For young victims of sexual predators, the damage lasts a lifetime. Tim Cullen worked to throw out the sentence of a repeat sexual predator, arguing that child pornography was a victimless crime. Victimless? Tell that to the thousands of victims robbed of their childhoods and left with permanent psychological and physical scars. Thankfully, the court rejected Cullen's argument. Call Tim Cullen, tell him to stop claiming these are victimless crimes. Predators belong behind bars.
So do you think that child pornography is a victimless crime?
No, of course not.
Why do they say that?
I was appointed to represent a man who had pled guilty to child pornography. He couldn't afford a lawyer, and so under our court system, everybody's entitled to a lawyer, and I was appointed to represent him. The facts were he was talking to someone on an internet chat room who he believed to be a young girl. It wasn't a young girl. In fact, it was an Arkansas State Police investigator and an FBI agent that were posing as children. He's opposed to one-way streets.
Despite the ad's allegation, Tim Cullen was not trying to get his client out of prison. Since he pled guilty, he was only trying to reduce his sentence.
One of the arguments we made was factually based, that in fact in this crime there was no victim because there was no minor child that was actually a part of this. And that was the argument, and it was a reasonable argument to make because thankfully he didn't victimize a child. It was an FBI agent, grown adults that were on the other side of that chat room. So that's how that was taken out of context and gives the voters the impression that I'm somehow in favor of child pornography, which is just preposterous. It's the worst thing you could say about somebody.
The ad even suggested voters give him a call to tell him what they thought about his argument, and many obliged.
I am a victim of what you call a victimless crime.
All in all, he received around 100 calls, most of which were from victims or parents of victims who were traumatized.
Hello, sir. I just wanted to let you know that it is not a victimless crime. My child was raped by his father. And you know what? My child is still going through hell. You don't know how many times I've had to wake up holding my child because of the screaming, because of the nightmares that he still has to this day. What if it did happen to your children? Maybe you would have a different outlook.
See, their ad was very effective because it provoked this emotional response in people. They assumed the worst about me, and you know, how can you run a political campaign when those kind of allegations are out there about your character?
Who had it in for Tim Cullen? He will probably never know. The organization that financed this ad campaign, the Law Enforcement Alliance of America, is unknown to our Kansas administrations. It's based thousands of miles away from Little Rock up north in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. The last known address of the Law Enforcement Alliance of America is here, some 30 minutes drive away from the capital.
C'est vide.
But their offices are empty. A neighbor can confirm.
Do you know a group that's called Law Enforcement Alliance of America?
Oh, they don't. They've been gone for a long time.
Oh, how long do
Close to a year now.
About a year? Yeah. Oh. How many people were there?
2.
Just 2?
Yeah.
Once they'd torpedoed Tim Cullen's candidacy, the Law Enforcement Alliance for America disappeared without even leaving a forward address. This lobbying group did its best to cover its tracks. No one answers the phone or emails. But above everything else, its finances are kept secret. This is a very concerning issue for progressive think tanks in Washington, D.C.
The Law Enforcement Alliance of America, they've spent money in judicial races across America, and they've never disclosed who their donors are. So we really have no idea where that money is coming from, and these groups can come in with all their national resources and dominate in states that aren't used to seeing all this money in judicial elections. And if you have a bias...
As incredible as it may seem, this is totally legal. In the United States, a non-profit organization can keep the names of its benefactors a secret. To keep their anonymity, many lobbying groups have chosen this legal loophole. And so did the Law Enforcement Alliance of America. They can destroy candidates anonymously at will without ever having to reveal the source of their funding.
An elderly woman kidnapped, beaten, and raped.
Diaz, the only one voting for the rapist.
A 20-month-old baby dead from blows to her head.
Justice Diaz votes to overturn the baby killer's conviction.
Log on and tell Justice Diaz to protect Mississippi families, not criminals. Paid for by Law Enforcement Alliance of America.
There's even a name for this type of campaign financing: dark money.
Dark money usually refers to money that's spent by a nonprofit group that doesn't disclose its donors. It's very scary that we have these groups out there spending all this money to influence judges, and we don't really know where that money's coming from.
But how are judges supposed to rule impartially when stakes have become so high? That's the whole dilemma posed by judiciary elections. Sometimes public opinion pressures judges to give the death sentences. My investigation has come to an end, and I have a meeting in the north of the United States with members of the family of a death row inmate.
Okay, so these are the picture of young Ashford?
Yes.
Okay.
Sharon Thompson and her brother Matthew have accepted to meet me on one condition: I must not show their faces. Sharon's son, Ashford, is now kept in death row. He has killed a policeman.
Marching band, and he loved the music.
According to her, nothing in her boy's history or character could predestine him to such a terrible fate. He had a diploma as a nurse and was always available for advice.
Nephew, cousins, they go to him when they needed some medical or something around the house. And he would stop, take the time, pull their teeth, do whatever they had to do, and they had a lot of confidence in him. And he spent a lot of time with kids.
Ashford Thompson was licensed to carry a weapon because he sometimes feared for his security when he had to do his nursing job in rough areas. But in July 2008, age 23, his life takes a turn for the worst. He's heading home when he realizes a police car is tailing him.
He pulled into the driveway to go in the house with his girlfriend. And at that time, a police car swerved into the yard behind him and blocked him. And he didn't know what it was for. He said he did have his loud music on, but it was just music. And it was late at night, 1 or 2 o'clock at night.
For unknown reasons, things then got out of control. The police officer has the young man get out of the driver's seat and tries to put the handcuffs on him. According to his family, this is when Ashford thought the officer was going to shoot him.
I mean, that's what goes on here. I mean, officers kill black people all the time. So yeah, he was afraid.
Maybe he panicked, but one thing is certain. Ashford pulled his gun and killed the police officer. In 2010, an Ohio jury sentenced him to death.
I just want to say I'm sorry. I can't apologize enough.
His lawyers appeal to Ohio's Supreme Court. They don't deny his guilt, but are protesting the harsh sentence.
The factors that remain with Ashford Thompson still, I believe, should lead this court to the conclusion that he is not warranting of a death sentence. This is not, again, a case of prior calculation and design. He did not set out to kill somebody that night. And this is not a man who was violent, who had ever been convicted of something violent before.
2 of the 7 judges in the court are a cause for concern for the defense lawyers regarding the judge's partiality due to the election campaign. Sharon Kennedy's campaign, for one, stressed her endorsement by the police.
Law enforcement's choice, Sharon Kennedy. 16 years as a judge, Sharon Kennedy began her career as a police officer working undercover operations. It's why law enforcement from around Ohio support Sharon Kennedy. Sharon Kennedy for Ohio's Supreme Court.
For Ashford Thompson's lawyers, it's a clear case of conflict of interest in an affair where the victim is a policeman. This is the head lawyer for Ashford Thompson. Tim Young is the director of the Public Defender's Office of Ohio. He challenged Judges Sharon Kennedy's objectivity as well as Judy French's, another Supreme Court judge. In her campaign ad, she promised voters she would be an implacable judge if she were elected.
Now Judy French is a tough-on-crime justice who protects Ohio families and enforces rule of law. Justice Judy French for Ohio Supreme Court.
The idea that any justice or judge would say that they're tough on crime suggests an inherent bias. They're supposed to come to the court fair and balanced, and we're supposed to have an adversarial system where both sides start in the same place. But instead, we have judges actively advertising, I'm in favor of the government. I'm against people who've been accused of crime. I am starting this system biased.
For Tim Young, another ad financed by an independent group is even more troubling. It promotes her stand on capital punishment.
Supreme Court Justice Judy French is working hard to protect us. Judy French upheld the death sentence for a murderer who shot his girlfriend in front of her 3-year-old daughter. Justice Judy French. She's tough.
That group spent over $500,000 supporting Justice French's campaign. $500,000. Imagine if she voted against the death penalty. They would have spent that $500,000 on running somebody against her.
In a nutshell, Judges French and Kennedy's legal opinions are bound to their campaign promises. In Ashford Thompson's case, on the day of the verdict, 3 judges heard the arguments of the lawyers and voted against the death sentence. But 4 judges, of which Judges French and Kennedy, voted for. The sentence is held and Ashford Thompson's lawyers are furious.
4-3, as close as you can get. Had either one not voted the way they did, Mr. Thompson wouldn't be on death row today.
In the United States, 60% of the people favors the death penalty, and many judges have let themselves be influenced by their voters. This is what a recent study that shocked the judiciary world revealed. Led by Reuters news agency in 2015, it's been comparing the decisions of elected and appointed judges regarding the death penalty. It reviewed 2,000 state Supreme Court decisions in 37 states. The results are chilling. In states where judges are appointed, in 26% of the cases, the death penalty sentence is reversed. However, in states where judges are being elected, this percentage drops down to 11% for fear of disappointing the electorate. An appointed judge is twice as likely to reverse a death sentence as an elected judge.
The death penalty is more about politics than almost anything else. The underlying factors that drive death penalty choices are politically driven.
So at the end of the day, we can say that judicial elections kill.
Judicial elections absolutely kill.
The United States are now discovering the adverse side effects of judiciary elections: pressure from public opinion, the power of lobbies, and the importance of money. I wonder what will happen of the American democracy that promised an impartial justice system for the people and by the people. Many people in the justice system itself share this concern and fear American individuals may decide to take justice into their own hands.
It's absolutely scary what's happening, because when politics are introduced into courts, people who do not have power or influence or money will feel that they will not be heard in the courts and that they cannot find justice in the courts. And then where do they turn? It would not be a pretty picture.